friends. Welcome. We are back again. We are here today with Star, who I'm going to introduce in just a moment, but welcome back to the Rooted in Practice Summit. We have had two conversations so far this morning. We have this one and one more coming up this afternoon, and then three again tomorrow. I really hope you're enjoying them. The Rooted in Practice Summit is really a practitioner first summit that is for you, the practitioner, as I just mentioned. It is about filling your cup and how to do so that we can be filling others, pouring into others. That's what we do all day long as practitioners is we give, give, give. So this summit slows us down to really look at the holistic lifestyle, the balance holistically that is necessary for sustainability, longevity, health, wellness. We've been talking about movement so far this morning, awareness, awakening, conscious growth, identity, and we are going to continue this conversation with nutrition and hydration. So if you've been enjoying this conversation and the rest to follow, the HSA, the Holistic Spa Alliance, is also here to serve you beyond this event. I'm Jaime, the founder of the Holistic Spa Alliance. I'm an accredited educator. I am also a licensed practitioner in massage and aesthetics. And of course, I have a holistic lens. So we are an ecosystem that is growing. We have hands-on education. We have these live summits that we'll do periodically. We also have group community conversations, ongoing memberships, and actually, speaking of the memberships, throughout for the kickoff of this summit, we are going to be drawing a name for a 3-month membership into one of our new foundation memberships called The Circle. If you go onto holisticspaalliance.com, you can register for your chance to win. We'll be drawing that the end of May and announcing for June 1st for the launch of that new membership coming up. So without further ado, let's get into why we are here today. Let me introduce you to Star. Star will be live in just a moment. And when Star does join, let me give you a little information about her. Hi, Star. Welcome. Thank you so much. Star is an author of the Holistic Beauty Book, the original founder of Formula Botanica, creator of the Facelift Diet, and the Dietary Skin Aging Score app. That looks so cool. I'm going to have to look into that. And the founder of Skin Nutrition Institute. And that is actually where I first found Star. I am a student of the Skin Nutrition Institute, and I encourage everybody, as you've seen it posted through my websites in years past, she has an amazing plethora of educational content in there for you. And just a little nugget of that is what we're going to talk about today. So welcome. How is Mexico? Star joins us from Playa del Carmen. I have to start most importantly there. How is Mexico right now?
Yeah, hot and steamy. So already I did my hair so nicely for the video. It's already going fluffy because I have European hair. Just
One of the beautiful consequences, I'll call it,
I know.
to being
Yeah,
in
you got to
Mexico.
take the rough with the smooth. But yeah, no, it's
Exactly.
great. It's great. Yeah,
Well, before we really get into the education and the meat of what we're talking about, your talk today is Eat Water, the food solution to cellular hydration. And I'm going to ask you some questions specifically about the title. But before we do that, tell me a little bit more about yourself and to get a little more personal, like what was your journey that originally pulled you towards this kind of work, Star?
yeah, that's a really great question. Thank you, and also thank you for having me. Hello, everyone. Um, yeah, I had some skin issues when I was younger, but even before then, I was just kind of fascinated with nature and how everything can come from nature. Such as, you can make skin products from nature, you can make dye, you can make paint, you can make rope and clothing from plants, and and of course we eat the plants as well. And I was just like, wow, like this is, I'm I was just like a small child when I came to this realization. I was like, oh, I live in like some weird paradise where everything's provided by nature. Such a naive perspective. But it kind of just stuck with me how plants are the solution seemingly for everything. And then as I got older, I developed eczema, like in my hairline and my eyebrows. And, I was a 14-year-old or 13-year-old girl, and you kind of, your looks are everything. You go into school, you don't want people like mocking you for having flaky skin or anything. And I was like, what's going on? Why have I suddenly got this? And I tried all these different creams. I'd go to the doctor and then he'd give me the typical sort of eczema ointments, and they didn't work. They just made the skin itchier. And I was like, there's got to be another reason. And I started looking into nutrition and food because I just had this sense that, the what we put in our body is literally building us. So there must be some way that I can fix my skin using food. And I started making my own skincare products around that time as well. That was my first love, making potions and things. But then I was doing the food side as well, starting to eat a lot healthier, trying not to eat like the typical teenage junk food. I was not hanging around in McDonald's. I was trying to eat like grapefruit halves, typical sort of like 1980s view on like health food, like, oh, I had a half a grapefruit and oatmeal and a glass of carton orange juice for breakfast. But it was still better than what most teenagers were eating. And so my eczema did go away. And I was like, oh, I'm magical. I fixed myself. let's do this forever. So that's kind of the origin story. I was basically a little potion witch messing around with herbs and things at home.
No, I love that. I've also have never gone on to make anything, but I've always loved like the lotions and potions and mixing and putting things together. I grew up with a very, I'll call her hippie mom, and yeah, nature was sufficient, right? There were things at our fingertips that we could utilize for a plethora of things. So I love that you figured that out on your own. So tell me how then eat water, the solution to cellular hydration, comes into play with that. Or let's start with just the title. What does that mean? What is eat water, the food solution to cellular hydration?
Yeah, so when we think about hydration, especially whole body hydration, we think of drinking more water. Everyone's like, drink your 6 to 8 glasses a day. And the problem with that is it's not really the full picture of cellular hydration. Most people will report back, hey, I drank my 6 to 8 glasses and I was just going to the bathroom every 30 minutes and, it's just flowing through me. So I call this like the waterfall. We have two types of hydration, the waterfall and the cellular hydration. So the waterfall is there to just keep detoxing you. You want water going in so rubbish can come out. But you also need to lock water into your cells as well. And that's what cellular hydration is. Now, plain water is great for that waterfall effect. And anyone watching this will know, they'll be probably going, I know that feeling of like drinking my 2 liters a day and having to run to the bathroom. But cellular hydration is not about, flushing out instantly like this. It's about locking water into the cells. And then with skin specifically, we want to be locking water into the dermis, because that's, where our skin holds its water, basically, mostly in the dermis. So we want to be locking water in there. So if we're only drinking plain water and having waterfall hydration, we're not locking water into the cells. So how do we lock water into the cells and into the dermis? Well, it has to be a different type of water because plain water is not going to do it. So this is where eat water comes in. Eat water is already structured to kind of match how our fluids are in our body because we are not plain water. We're an isotonic solution with particles in it, with sugars and salts and amino acids floating around. So we need water to match that so it gets into the cells. And that's how water is presented when it's inside things like fruits and vegetables. So eating water is how we get cellular hydration.
First, I love that analogy because a lot of times, as a massage therapist, you'll hand somebody a glass of water. And sometimes, if it's later in the day, they're like, no, it's going to go right through me. I'll be up all night. But to understand the difference that we need that waterfall to flush, but then we need a different type of water for the actual cellular. benefit, was just a really great analogy. And I think we're becoming pretty savvy that we need at least something mineral based to help to start this, like holding or locking it into the cells. But at least myself, I have not come across the conversations yet, on the fact that our food is potentially going to be, not potentially, is doing that for us as well. So we are pretty savvy towards like Himalayan salts or Celtic salts, all the popular right now, and a little bit added to water, kind of like your own natural electrolyte, if you will. So for food, what is, or not to give you the, like, state that as the first, my question is, if someone is constantly dealing with dehydrated skin, what are we missing when we're only looking at the surface then? And you can segue into food however you'd like there.
Yeah, well, here's the thing, is like often skin is called dehydrated when it's actually dry, and people think
Yes.
those mean the same thing. Now, dry skin is actually when you lack oil, because you get these dry flakes, which means there isn't enough oil in the skin surface to lock down your corneocytes, so your skin cells aren't glued together neatly, as it were, and you can lose a lot of water through the skin that way. It's called transepidermal water loss. But dry skin is really when you see the dry patches, that's really about a lack of oil, not water. Dehydration, you don't necessarily easily see, so you're going to miss it. If you're going to look at someone's skin and think they're dehydrated because they've got dry skin, you're looking at the wrong nutrient. Dehydration shows up more like a face looking more gaunt and less plump, because what's in the dermis is hyaluronic acid. Now, hyaluronic acid is a water locking molecule. It's 1,000 times its own weight in water. And half of your whole body's hyaluronic acid is in the skin only. So think about that. We need 15 grams of hyaluronic acid a day, which your body makes itself. And half of that, 50% of that, lives in the skin. That's how important it is to skin hydration. And the thing you mentioned, the sodium, yeah, we need sodium is naturally part in structured water, but also the bit people forget is sugar, because hyaluronic acid is a type of sugar. And so it's carbohydrates and sugars that lock the water into the cell. But we live in a world of like, don't have sugar, don't have carbs. And so we see these, I can see it clearly on people's faces when they are low carb, because they get that gaunt look, in their face, because they don't have enough hyaluronic acid locking the water in, because they're not got enough sugars in their diet, and not enough sugars to even make hyaluronic acid in the first place. So you can kind of see it when people start to have that gaunt look. It's usually a loss of fat and a loss of water in the facial skin. So you kind of need to address a little bit of both, really, but we are obviously just talking about skin hydration. So you don't always really see it as such, but yeah, that loss of plumpness is a good giveaway. Like dry skin on the surface doesn't tell you, because that's more about oil. But when people start to lose the plumpness in their skin, that could be very much a hydration issue. And it's subclinical, so you can't really use like these clinical hydration tests of pinching the skin, because that's really for clinical hydration. What we're dealing with the skin usually is what they call hypohydration. It's like you're not dehydrated as such, but you're not hydrated. You're kind of like in between. You're just not quite getting enough water in the skin.
I was going to love this conversation, and it kind of goes towards towards the end of my questions, which is, how does this affect those in the treatment room? But just to simply start this conversation, that eating our water is a way of anti-aging. Like, how amazing that that's right at our fingertips. By nourishing our bodies, that's going to outwardly project in our youthfulness, hydration, our glow, all of it. So just an incredible piece when you can put that power into somebody's hands versus selling a lotion, a potion, a topical. It's I really enjoy empowering my clients with these bits of information to educate them on a different level on how they can take charge of their skin, their health, all of it. Um, so you went into this a little bit, but when you personally started connecting nutrition to skin health, what was the first domino? You said you were seeing something in your own skin. Did you ever treat clients? I needed to ask you that actually. I know that you are, or you tell me, you're not an esthetician, but you are a Sorry.
Yeah, what am I? What am I? I still don't know what I'm going to be when I grow up. Um, I am trained as a facialist. My original
You
training
are.
way many decades ago was in reflexology, aromatherapy, and then later on I did facialist training and nutritional training at the same time. So I've kind of like been messing around in both fields a little bit. But I never was really great at kind of, well, it's not great. That's a bad thing to say about myself. I just wasn't naturally drawn to doing a lot of client work. I mostly really loved reading all the research and disseminating that information because I could see where there were a lot of gaps in people's knowledge. And I'm like the kind of knowledge gap filler, if there was a title. um, so yeah, that's kind of what I do. So I ended up in the educational side.
It's my faux pas for not researching that prior.
That's
I
okay.
apologize. I knew you were
Thank
an
you.
accredited educator. I didn't know if you had that practititioner background because I've had a variety, and I will have a variety of speakers that are both practitioners and non-practitioners. Sorry about that.
No,
Um,
that's okay.
uh,
I probably don't label it very well on my website because I probably don't know myself. I've been a practitioner of
yes.
many things, and then I've moved into education. But I also love the research side, and I want to go into writing more. And
Well, and that's
writing.
evident in the education that you offer, in the books that you do, and the research that you are providing for us who are in the treatment room on a daily basis. So your personal story with this, your history with this is from your own journey, though. More so then. Um, what did you notice in your own skin and body when you were not supporting it through nutrition and hydration versus when you are? There's the obvious, there's the skin itself. You were mentioning the psoriasis, but and that is a form of inflammation. But for those that don't know, does it go further into inflammation, even energy or healing?
Yeah, so when I first started out looking at these links when I was literally just a teenager, it was just purely like aesthetics. I was like, I just wanted my skin to look better. But as I've gotten older and I've really studied the science and also on myself, like you say, I mean, I'm always applying this knowledge to myself too, because I like to, walk my talk, as it were. Um, yeah, I really noticed a difference. In fact, there's been times in my life where even at this stage, I just turned 50 this year. And yeah, people don't ever guess my age, so that's one thing.
No, if you just saw my face,
Yeah.
I am surprised.
Just based on how I look, people never guess my age, right? They always think I'm a minimum. If I'm a bit tired, they probably think I'm 40, 42. When I'm more perky looking, they guess around 35, 36. So, I mean, that's a testament to it itself. I know it's not genetic. Like I look, the rest of my family don't have this magical youthing thing. It's not like a thing in my family that we all look 15 years younger or anything. So, and I've also looked older at times. Like I look younger today than I did when I was 42, because when I was 42, I was going through a really bad time, like a trauma, and I was not eating in the way I promote. I wasn't eating a beauty foods diet or anything like that. And I was drinking a lot of alcohol, which is horrendously aging and dehydrating. And so I looked a lot older. I looked my age essentially when I was 40. I mean, there's nothing wrong with looking your age, by the way. Let's just get that out there. But
Right.
what's going on the outside is a barometer of how we're aging on the inside
Hmm.
too. Everything's aging at the same rate, so why not slow it down? Like who wants to hurtle like at full speed into decrepitude, because it's organ age, it's bone age, it's brain age at the same time as skin age. So when we look in youthful on the outside just through diet and lifestyle, that means we're also anti-aging, or slowing down age in our organs, in our brain, in our bones, which we all want, right? No one wants
Mhm.
to be decrepit. So I just wanted to put that aside because I know there's a lot of anti-aging, anti-aging movements in the world. But yeah, I really noticed, like, even, at different stages of my life when I've looked a certain way and then I've fallen off the wagon, as it were, of eating healthy, and I've started to look older, sometimes even after a bad night out. You can look like, who hasn't had one too many red wines and looked in the mirror the next day and be like, whoa, I suddenly look like 5 years older. because it does have a really instant impact. And the beautiful thing when you work with clients is that you can see the improvement very fast in the skin. Like within 30 days, the first little flush of like rejuvenation or a skin disorder, diminishing. You see it pretty fast when you really apply this science of like the food and the nutrition into your work.
Did you notice it outside of the skin, like in any joints or anything too? Do you notice that inflammatory reduction, giving you just overall better movement, obviously? And what are some of the things that you almost wouldn't have realized or put the two together? So the outward of your skin is one thing, the inflammation is another, but what's something that surprised you?
What surprised me is like when I really dedicated myself to being quite strict and eating like my facelift diet, the one I'm
Mhm.
writing book, um, I I did it for quite some time. I do these little experiments myself. I do it for a certain amount of time to note effects, and then I'll go back to like my normal eating, which is still a healthy way of eating.
Yeah.
What surprised me is the difference between like I'm vegan. I've been vegan for 30 years, so I eat only plant-based diet. What surprised me was I was already eating what's considered a healthy plant-based diet already. But when I went further and made it the facelift diet, loads of other things cleared up that I thought were just age. Like we're told like it's normal to be a bit achy in the mornings when you wake up when you're 50. No, it's not true. That went away.
Common, but it's not, yes, exactly.
Common, yeah, because we are all eating
But
in
it's not
like
how we're supposed to, yeah.
what I was supposed to feel, and I was just really surprised. I went up like a whole other health level, and I was like, God, I just feel like amazing. Like I had so much energy, not in like in a frenetic, horrible, anxious, I've had too
Yeah.
much caffeine, but just like this calm energy, and my thoughts like like when you think positive, and all that stuff, manifesting, think positive, that was so much easier too. It's like my brain became calm. And I have ADHD, so, my brain is never freaking calm. But it made that more manageable without medication. In fact, when I stick to these kind of like dietary protocols, I don't need medication for like anything. It's insane. And I really was shocked at the depth it could go to because I always say, like the facelift diet, like beauty foods, it's not about looks. It's about vibrant health at the cellular level. Because when you're vibrantly healthy at the cellular level, everything else takes care of itself and you glow on the outside as well. You can't not because you're built of cells too. Like all of this is built of cells. So it's really about vibrant health at the cellular level. So when you do that, everything, I mean, there's 12 major pathways of aging. One of them is inflammation, as you already mentioned. Then we have like the oxidative pathway. You've got autophagy. You've got glycation. All of these can get diminished using food and nutrition. So you suddenly, like everything starts changing, like your mind, your body, your face, your skin, your joints, your bones. I avoided surgery of the broken arm by tweaking my diet to heal the bone faster. They told me I'd need surgery. Me and my friend both broke. I'm a roller skater as a hobby. It's quite dangerous. I do figure skating
Love
on roller.
this.
So it's a whole other aspect of my personality. And, I do stunts and tricks like a figure skater. So if you fall, you really injure yourself. And I didn't have my wrist guards on because I was being a little bit cocky. And I was practicing a new move and I smashed my arm in 3 places. So they were like, you're going to need pins in that. So they were waiting for the inflammation to come down so they could do the surgery. And in the meantime, I was like, right, no, I know how to fix this. And I put myself on this bone healing diet. And I went back and they were like, oh, it's already like knitting back together. And I was like, yeah.
Kidding. You're like, I know this.
So it fixes like all of this, your cells already know how to fix your body. We get in the way by not giving it the materials it requires. When we
Right.
give our body the materials it requires, it sorts everything out.
We are always the common denominator of just getting in the way. And I'm going to say this throughout, so I'll make this disclaimer that it's going to be said without. But again, this is another reason I'm so excited we're having these conversations. And I'm having this conversation with you, and just the type of information that we can bring into our treatment rooms and spread the awareness. And of course, we can take your course, and that's where we, as the professionals and practitioners in the spa treatment room, should start. But the other way that it's transferred is through us as a conduit, right? From the education that we're going to receive to the ears of the client on the table. And sometimes they know a little bit, maybe enough to be dangerous, but sometimes they don't know this either, right? So to plant these seeds of information that our diet can directly reflect healing, inflammation. Of course, we're talking about skin hydration today, and it's going to attribute to this anti-aging that they are ultimately coming in for. So it's just so exciting. So if we were going to really talk about feeding the skin from within, help explain in a way that we as practitioners can understand. So what are the foods? How are we eating for our water?
Yeah, well, the main thing is, yeah, so eating for water is all about eating the water-rich foods.
Mhm.
Because obviously we can drink more water, we can drink more fluids, but that just creates this waterfall effect, you know. So we want to be locking that hydration in. And one of the best foods for this is fruit, because it also has the natural sugars that help lock the water into the cell. So help keep your hyaluronic acid, you know, and to stop that shrinking, because hyaluronic acid is a type of sugar, and how the body and sugars within the cell help to lock in moisture and lock in water, which is why here's a really good example of the opposite of that. You know, when you see professional bodybuilders and they're really, what they call it, cut, don't they, where you can see
Oh,
like every,
yes. Yep.
how they do that is they deliberately dehydrate their skin by cutting out all carbohydrates.
Interesting.
If they shrink their dermis, basically, that's how it's done.
It
So it's
becomes like a
not,
saran wrap, if you will, due to that dehydration. I
yeah,
mean,
it's
to
not wrong.
outline and
Yeah,
emphasize their
yeah.
muscles.
So if you're meeting clients on low carb diets, you really want to try and get them off those, because it's going to mess their skin up long term. The body is, every cell in the body runs it requires glucose, and the skin cells are no different. And then we've got hyaluronic acid, which is actually built from some of those glucose molecules. And then carbohydrates help lock moisture in. So one of the things is I promote is, and people are going to freak out, I know, but bear with me, a high carbohydrate diet. But I'm not talking about pastries and cakes and table sugar. No, we're talking fruits and vegetables. Fruits and vegetables are the number one beauty food because they lock in moisture. They get that structured water into your cells because they come packaged with all the things the body needs to use that water correctly. So we've got like the phytochemicals that help get it into the skin. Resveratrol is from red grapes is currently being studied for isotonic sports drinks because of its ability to deeply hydrate. So I always say fruit is the number one beauty food, always. So some, and fruit doesn't necessarily mean, you know, eating, snacking on like mangoes all day, although in Mexico I get to do that. Cucumber, tomatoes, they're also high hydration
Mhm.
fruits. So cucumber is actually the number one skin hydration food. It's 95% water. But the skin also contains chlorophyll, which is anti-aging, and silica, which is essential for healthy hair and nails. So you're getting a whole package. When we just drink water, we're just getting the water. When we get our water from fruits and vegetables, we're getting all these other beauty nutrients that actually help the skin remain healthy in so many different ways as well. So cucumber, celery is another good one, tomatoes, watermelon, strawberries, cantaloupe melon. These are all your top skin hydration foods.
Fruit almost is obvious. I knew you were going to say that one, and the fact that I've taken some of your courses, but I am surprised to hear the carbs. So we're talking about complex carbs. And so, what are some examples that we should be indulging in there?
Well, I mean, not necessarily complex carbs. I mean, complex carbs and simple carbs are kind of like the strange ways to label things. I would just say natural carbs, like, you know,
Okay.
whole food carbs. So number one carb source, fruit. secondary carb source vegetables, third in small doses, grains and things like that, because the grains have like some elements to them that aren't always synonymous with skin health. So for example, gluten can like really mess up like the gut microbiome, and there's the whole gut skin axis thing. So I don't recommend a lot of grains, but fruits and vegetables are really important carbohydrate sources. Yeah, especially fruit. Like a lot of vegetables don't have high enough carbohydrate content, you know, like spinach. Great for chlorophyll, great for minerals, but not great as a carbohydrate source. So that's why I heavily talk about fruit in a lot of my courses, as you
Mm.
know, because it's so hydrating and has so many like easily digestible sugars, which you know, promote skin health, and the soluble fibers as well, and and it's a slow release sugar, like because it's a whole food. Like all whole foods are slow release sugars.
I think I heard somewhere that raw whole food is the best way to consume, but when it comes to the vegetables, usually we're doing something, whether it's steaming, roasting, sautéing. Do you have a preference on how you cook your vegetables?
Yeah, so I'm more in favor of like water-based cooking methods because
Mhm.
when you with vegetables, especially when you do like you know, a really flavory dish, like people often like coat the vegetables in lots of oil and then they fry the vegetables.
Mhm.
The problem is fried oil is high glycation, so then we're hitting another, you know, one of those other aging pathways that can mess the skin up and cause problems with the collagen, you know. But this is not a glycation talk, so I'm trying not to go too deep into that. But whenever we cook anything, we also cook a lot of the water out. So that's I try and eat a lot of my fruits and vegetables in their natural water-rich state. You know, you look at the difference between, you know, like a tomato and a sun-dried tomato, for example. You can maintain it. Again, it depends on how you cook it. But I prefer steaming and boiling stuff. I even like water fry as well and water bake. So if I wanted to make a tomato soup, I would put the tomatoes and the garlic and everything in like a shallow pan with water in the bottom and foil over the top, and I'd slow roast it in the oven with no oil for like a couple of hours, and then it's this builds all these lovely flavors. So, you know, I really say again, I just avoid the high heat and high fat styles of cooking because that's where you remove all the water and you massively increase the advanced glycation end products, the AGEs. So yeah, water-based steaming is great.
And it aligns beautifully with like the slow beauty movement, right? The thinking of being intentional with things. We're so used to instant gratification and microwaves or high heat for quick dinners on the table. But when we are intentional with our food, you're still going to get the flavors, is what I'm hearing, obviously, with the slow roasting. And you're going to get the ultimate benefits from them as well, both physically, internally, all of the
Yeah,
all of the
yeah,
above.
exactly. And you can cook things in ways where you don't lose any water either. Like, for example, if I'm making quinoa, I put it in a flask and I just pour the hot water in and then I leave it in the flask and then it's cooked in an hour. And I haven't even had to mess around. I actually don't like spending a lot of time messing around in the kitchen, to be honest. You know,
You
it's like
know, I would love less time there, so I'm making my own
so
mental notes.
yeah, I need to put all these like tips and tricks into the library, the skin health
Yes.
library in school, because stuff like that can really help your clients transition to a better diet too. Because most people think, oh God, making stuff from scratch is going to take ages. And actually, the way I do food prep is the most fastest way possible because I do not like hanging around in the kitchen. I want to, once I'm hungry, I want to eat now.
Yes.
So I'm never someone that like takes an hour to cook or half an hour to cook. Hell no.
Tell us your secrets. What is your, at least give us one of your go-to food preps.
What are my go-to food preps? Okay. Oh. Well, blender. Get a blender because honestly, the things you can shove in a blender. I make ice cream in the blender. I make obviously all my smoothies in the blender. You can like, you know, water roast any kind of vegetable and throw it in a blender and make a pasta sauce. It's like it's just everything. I love my blender. As soon as I moved to Mexico, one of the first big purchases I got was like a new fancy blender because I delete mine behind in the UK. Yeah, and just like the foods you eat the most commonly, try and batch cook them. So with the quinoa, I can put a lot in a flask, make it in a flask. I haven't done the flask method here because I haven't found a wide mouth flask. But it's so you don't even have to think. You just put it into it, and it stays hot for hours as well. And then you can make a big batch of it, and then put it in the fridge, and then that's three lots of meals, because it will keep for about 3 days in the fridge. I love batching stuff as much as possible. I taught my partner how to make overnight chia oats for breakfast.
Yes.
So he batches them for like 4 days, and like he puts them all in, puts in the milk, put the chia seeds, in, put some frozen blueberries in, and then he's done. He just wakes up,
They're
adds a
there. You wake up, they're readily available. Yeah.
yeah.
Let me ask you a very silly question because I think I'm not following a word that you might use differently. What is a flask to you? Is that like a
Oh,
thermos to us?
I like
Because
a
it
thermos
stays
flask.
warm.
Stays hot, yeah. So
Okay.
you're cooking it. Like there's whole I didn't know this. There's whole blogs dedicated to cooking in a thermos flask. But I'm like, look, I have ADHD. If I try and cook, I forget it's on the pan and I will burn and it will burn the house down. Like I can't do regular person cooking. So I've had to develop all these ways, and it just so happens these ways are easier, tastier, and
Okay.
use
Well,
time.
now you have to put these tips and tricks onto your library because I'm going to be searching for them soon.
Like stars ADHD, cooking, no non-cooking. Yeah. Hardly any
Yes.
cooking required tips. Yeah.
I will be taking advantage of those. So let me shift to a question perspective on the industry. I know that you are obviously doing your part to get this education and the information out, but why do you think this piece is still missing in so many spa and wellness practices? I will say, though, give a disclaimer that I think today's wellness is starting to embody this whole body holistic aspect. But what do you think is missing in a lot of that connection for people?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I kind of got into a little debate with someone over this just recently. I was trying to push a media piece about dietary sunscreen because it's Skin Cancer Awareness Month right now. And the importance of like certain foods that can really alleviate like the formation of skin cancer within, like, because sunscreen is only like part of the problem. It's like half the problem, so we're only really ever doing half what we need. And the same is true of any like aesthetics practice, really, because we're only really working on the surface. I just think sometimes, having got into a debate just 2 days ago over this, there's a real stubbornness in the industry to change. It's like, no, this is our industry and we use these things and we're not nutritionists, which is fair enough. You don't want to send estheticians out in the world as nutritionists. It's a whole different training, a whole different skill set. But, okay, then let's start training them, which is obviously why I started my school 8 years ago. Oh my goodness, I think it's 9 years ago now, because I saw that gap. But 9 years later, I'm still having the same conversations. And I'm like, the science is there. The science has been there for over a decade that these industries need to be joined because, the food, how we build our skin is from within with diet and nutrition and other lifestyle aspects. If we're just messing around on the surface, we're doing like 20% of the work, So these industries are kind of crashing together nicely in the science world, in the world of research. But on the ground level, at the front line, it's like the message it's just getting through in like tiny little blips. And people aren't really running with it yet. This is why I'm trying to like have as many courses as possible so people can come in at any entry level and learn something and then be able to use that with their clients. Because as you know, I give these practitioner kits at the end of the courses so people have the information to share with their clients. So they don't have to know it all themselves. And I think, this needs to happen more, that the industry actually starts to be like, we're not losing our industry by opening it up to nutrition. We don't have to be these closely guarded secret world of external interventions. But I get the impression that some industry leaders are just a little stubborn and kind of, everyone's afraid of change, aren't they? People get afraid of change. And And probably like how do we bring that in? How? You know, because I'm just a little school and I'm not a big voice in the world, you know, so when these real big industries are looking, they're probably not seeing much of how they can get that information and use it, unless they stumble across my cute little corner of the internet, you know. Um, so I think like the science is saying you must include nutrition, you must include nutrition, and then in the industry they're like, well, how? Like no one's showing us how. And I think that's a big part of the problem. Is like there's not really enough, and there's still some industry people. I still see dermatologists who are very highly trained, right? They do whole degrees, whole medical degrees. They still say things like, "You can only hydrate your skin from the outside with product," and it's like
I know.
not true. So it's like they're still saying that stuff now. So like this misinformation is still being spread, which is, you know, I don't know. There's a whole cacophony of stuff going on.
Absolutely. And at the risk of saying the wrong thing, I do think that Western medicine is held at such a high um, value and level. I mean, rightfully so in certain aspects, of course. But when you have a dermatologist or somebody within Western medical saying you're not going to get anything through plants by eating your water, it's from the outside in, whatever the case is, it's easy to kind of crawl back as an esthetician, as a massage therapist, and to be quiet again. But I love to hear that the science is out there. And I know that we, in our little corner of the internet and of the world, is also, we as holistic spa practitioners are really passionate about this whole balance, whole body balance, and doing our best to bridge the gap as well. And I do see, as I gave the earlier disclaimer, that there is a shift happening in the industry. I do believe. So hopefully before too long, it will come full circle. If a practitioner is listening, realizes they've never really looked at the skin this way, though, because perhaps there's some non-holistic lensed SDs out there. What's one place they can start this week? So now think of us in a practitioner's room. We're not trying to step outside of our scope, of course. We're not nutritionists, but I like to think of it as planting seeds of conversation, or even before they get to that conversation, what is something they can consider and start doing? Is it as simple as just eating more fruits and vegetables?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so here's a funny story that I just found out about. A friend of mine who's a chef, and she makes a lot of plant-based food. She has a plant-based chef business, and she's not in the industry at all, but like it's just, I just thought this was an amazing story. And she said that she's very fair skinned. She'd be like one of the people that needs like factor million sunscreen, you know? And she never tans, she just burns. So she's always slathered in sunscreen. But she forgot her sunscreen, but she's changed her diet because she's was putting on weight. She's been eating in her own profits, like literally. And she makes a lot of tasty, like very sugary treats. And she's like, oh, I'm getting, you know, I'm starting to put weight on. I don't want to. And so I just cut out all of that. And now I just snack on fruit as I'm working because it's easy to just grab an apple or some grapes. And she said she went out in the sun the other day and she forgot her sunscreen. And she was like, oh my God. And she looked at her back because she was gardening, and it was tanned, no burning. And she's like, that's never happened in my entire life. So even like, and I'm not telling everyone, don't obviously tell your clients not to use sunscreen. Don't take that from the story. It's just that even little things like just increasing fruits in the diet can make such a massive difference. It's unbelievable until you do it. It's like, it can't be that simple, right? Right? But it is.
And by the way, you're in a safe space. And as holistic estheticians, we just had a talk about SPF, hypervigilance, yay or nay. And of course, to respect the sun, but the sun is a life source, and getting into mitochondria and all of that stuff. So that was a perfect comment. That will build off of another talk that we've had. Okay, so then let's shift this perspective from somebody who's new to this conversation to somebody who's a little more advanced, ready to focus on nutrition. What's something deeper, more advanced that they might not be considering yet? Is there anything?
Yeah, there is. I mean, there's a lot of okay, so here's a really good one to dive into because it's very current. This high protein craze of putting, I call it protein mania. Everyone's gone protein crazy and there's stuff in it and everything. I cannot open TikTok without seeing another recipe with protein powder added to it. It's annoying for one, because I don't want to eat powdery things all day long. But what people aren't realizing is like most of that information is just nonsense. There isn't this sudden requirement to eat 3 million grams of protein just because you turn 50. In fact, eating too much protein can actually cause things like sarcopenia. It can make skin aging worse. It can make everything, it basically speeds up the aging processes in the body, too much protein. It's also dehydrating for the skin. So actually, I wrote this down just in case this came up, actually.
Interesting.
I've got a study here somewhere. Hang on, where is it in my
While
notes?
you're looking for that, I'm really keen to hear what you're going to say because I'm working towards better movement, and all I keep hearing to regulate my weight is protein, 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 breakfast, lunch, dinner, and I'm having a hard time consuming the amounts that I'm supposed to.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can't wait to hear.
Yeah, it's impossible because the only way to consume that amount is through supplementation. So it
Mm.
clearly shows it's not a natural part of our diet to eat that much protein if we can't do it through food. It's impossible. And the protein powder industry is like, it's huge. I mean, it is multi-billion dollar industry. Um, and they're capitalizing on this, of course. So the high protein diet was so when you eat a high protein diet, you also need a lot more water to flush out the nitrogen. So in a study where athletes were put on a high protein diet, they were drinking a lot more water because this is in a lab setting, in a clinical setting, so they knew they needed more water, so they gave them more water. So even though they're drinking more water, they still had more skin dehydration than the people that not on the high protein diet, even though the people on the high protein diet were drinking more water, because it dehydrates you at the cellular level. We're not supposed to consume that much protein. And this idea that women who turn 40, 45, 50 suddenly need massive amounts more protein is just not backed up by the science. It's like maybe a tiny increase, but we're talking like a percent, not hundreds of grams more. It's just not backed up. And in fact, there is a lot of science out there that's saying anything more than 100 grams a day is a toxic level for a human. And you've got people online saying 200 grams, 300 grams a day. And it's like, we've never needed that much protein. This is just influencer talk, this is, yeah.
It's important. It just goes to show it's really important for us, especially in the day of social media, to really do our research. Obviously, protein plays a role in a piece, but just like the holistic balance and all the talks that we're having, one can't dominate. You have to have a good balance of everything.
Yeah.
Um, how can we as practitioners start to integrate these conversations into our treatment rooms? Your courses are set up to really educate us, but if we want to start just having smaller conversations, again, without going past our license, I've lost
Right.
my words for a second, sorry, and without feeling overwhelmed talking about it, how do we begin these conversations with others? What
Well,
language would we use?
Well, I mean, you could couch it into, if you're really worried about the languaging, because I understand in the scope of practice, you wouldn't be able to give advice. Is that
Mhm.
right? Yeah.
Correct.
You
That's what
can't
I
be
was
like,
looking for.
oh, I
Yes.
recommend you eat more strawberries or something. You could just say the way to language it is like, oh, I heard recently that, cucumber is an excellent food for skin hydration and might help you grow your nails because it contains silica. I heard recently, or I saw a study that said, or like, because you're not giving advice, you're just saying, I've started doing this because I heard an expert say XYZ. So that's the languaging you can use in it. And if you're looking to do a little bit more, in terms of training, like at my school, for example, we give practitioner kits. So you can use the languaging from our kit. You can just give them a fact sheet. Then it's not you giving advice. You're giving something that's been licensed already by a third party that's accredited. You're just passing it along.
Beautiful segue in. And that's how I have navigated these conversations is what's worked for me. Out of lived experience, I've found that's what's going to translate best. Or a family member, close friends, without being too personal or using names. So yeah, or the fact that you're saying just researching or hearsay is okay conversationally, at least to begin those conversations.
Yeah, or I can
Um,
pass on, I can give you this fact sheet that I got from da da da, because then it's like I'm the one that made the fact sheet, it's not you, and you're just passing the important resource along.
Information.
Yeah, so you're not doing anything like giving them. When you look into your insurances, it usually says something like you can't give personalized advice. So it's not personalized if it's the same fact sheet you're giving to all your clients, you see?
Yes, very okay. That is a good, another great way of putting it. So let's help the practitioners listening or anybody listening that is within the wellness for longevity career aspect here. How would understanding skin from the inside out change a practitioner's career long term? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, my goodness, where does that road go? Because I mean, when we look at the industry, and I read a lot of industry reports on a not a daily basis, but probably every month or two, I check in with what the like industry stats are saying. Like we are seeing it's a snowball, like almost like a rush towards this integration of nutrition and aesthetics. And so, practitioners that aren't in that are going to get left behind. It's as simple as that. It's going to become the dinosaur. So you got to start, especially, when you're a holistic esthetician, we're expecting a more holistic approach anyway. But even in just like, the science papers, the industry papers are all saying that there's this rush to integrate these sectors into one super sector. And so it's kind of a case of like, you kind of have to start doing it now. Because then you're going to be in the first wave of practitioners that are doing this. So who's going to be getting all the clients? Who's going to be getting the clients? And also you can start doing more specialized treatments. Because when, what it's like, there's if every esthetician is offering the same thing, how does a client choose to come to you as opposed to the other esthetician 2 blocks away? How are they choosing you? Well, you can differentiate yourself because within the nutritional aspect of aesthetics, there are so many different ways to specialize. You become specialized in sort of hormonal skin aging. You can become specialized in treatment of actual skin disorders, for example, like acne or eczema, using nutrition. You can become specialized in skin aging or reversing skin age or slowing down skin age or reversing sun damage with diet, for example. There's so many different ways. So you become more specialized. You actually weirdly become more qualified in many things, but you become more specialized. And people are going to specialists more and more. They're not going to like the generic esthetician. They're going like, I want an esthetician that can do this for me. This is my specific issue, and I want someone that matches that issue. So, it becomes more of a case of you easily attract your clientele because you're offering this a very exacting system, and then you can combine it in ways you would never have imagined. You can combine treatments like the dietary thing with a specific skin treatment to really augment that skin treatment. So someone comes in for like reversing melasma, for example, or any kind of hyperpigmentation. It's like you can use the UV damage repair nutrition knowledge with the topical treatments you're offering to make this new system that you've created, and that's much more attractive than just the one thing. Like people love to get the whole, they want something to really really work at the cellular level. So and that's what you.
Absolutely. And as I asked that question in the back of my mind, it's screaming, didn't you listen to anything she said? Of course, this is why. Um, but what I love about your courses as well, it's like you made them specifically for spa practitioners. You made them for so many people, but it it blends beautifully in what we love to do without the extra. And what I mean by that is I'm not at a point in my career that I necessarily want to become a nutritionist
Right.
and get into the longevity of what that looks like, but I am interested in understanding. And you deliver so much information. It's not just surface level either. I hope that's not how I just made that sound. But it's catered specifically. The amount of information and the type of information is packaged beautifully for spa practitioners and many others, but just because that's my little field right now, I'm just going to mention that.
Yeah.
Um, I definitely have more questions, but I'm going to wrap it up into one last question that is about you, and then I'll ask how to work a little closer with you. But what is something you personally eat or do regularly that you know your skin responds to almost immediately?
Mangoes. This is why I moved to Mexico
Mangoes.
for the best mangoes. Whenever I eat a lot of mangoes, like I have really, no matter what diet I am on or what food I'm experimenting, my fingernails are terrible. They're really brittle. They just drop off. They've always been like that since I was a child. But when I eat like a lot of mangoes, my fingernails get so long and strong. It's like I've had like acrylics.
No
And it's
kidding.
only from mangoes. I still haven't tracked down exactly what's in mango.
That's what I was just going to ask. Okay, what does it break down to be?
I still don't know because like there's a lot of stuff in mangoes that are also in other fruits. So it should happen with other fruits too, but it doesn't. It happens with mangoes. So there is a specific phytochemical called mangofferin, but I can't find any science on it being related to like nail growth. But
Okay.
maybe no one studied it yet, so I don't know. But it's a mystery to me still. But
Fruits
yeah,
and
when I eat
mangoes
a
for
lot of
Star.
mangoes, yeah, this mangoes are like my magic food for my fingernails. It seems they become hard and I can tap, whereas normally they're soft and bendy.
Yes, no, I get exactly what you're saying. Okay, so is there anything you'd like to leave us with? Any last bits of information before we learn what your handles and where your website is?
Eat more fruit. Like look at every meal that you're eating and say, how can I add more fruit to this?
Just start doing it. Just
Start
put
doing
it into action.
colorful fruits. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so let's start with your social handles. Where can we follow you if we're not
Okay,
already?
so professionally at the school is at Skin Nutrition Institute, which I'm mostly active on Instagram. I'm also, if you want to follow me personally, I'm at the Age Hacker on Instagram. I am on TikTok as well, but I don't really use a lot. Instagram is like my home base, I think.
Same.
Mostly that.
And the website is also the Skin
Oh yeah,
Nutrition Institute.
it's skinnutritioninstitute.com. Yes, thank you.
And Star has lovingly given us a code to use for 25% off for limited time. It's HSA for Holistic Spa Alliance. So HSA 2026-50. That is on our website as well as all of Star's socials, websites, direct links to her courses under holisticspa-alliance.com, under Rooted in Practice. Rooted, I thought I got my words mixed up. In Rooted in Practice. And if you scroll down, you'll see all of the speakers, but Star is linked there, her full bio, and where you can directly work with her. So this just wasn't long enough, but Star, thank you so much again for your time, your wisdom, all of these incredible nuggets of information we were able to take away. And thank you for everybody watching live as well. And until next time,
Thank you.
thank you, Star.